Welcome everyone to the What's the Play podcast. My name's Brian, here with CT, Brandon, JG, JB. Got Kayla behind the camera. So we're going to start real quick with the All-Star team predictions that we made. We made a whole list. Everybody did their predictions for their teams and things of that nature. So we're going to start off with the Eastern Conference. So the starter locks so far, we only had two. It was Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. After that, the rest of the locks were Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Halliburton, Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Pascal Siakam. So we're gonna start with CT. Who would be the other three people that weren't locks that you would have on your All-Star team?
So for me personally, I think the first one I'd like to bring attention to, I don't think Paul George is a lock for some people.
Talking about the Eastern Conference.
Eastern Conference.
Oh, my fault.
We'll get to the
all right, yeah, let's get to the East.
One too bad.
So I got Kristaps on here, right? So Kristaps Porzingis, he had a really great start to the season. He slowed down a little bit, but he's been really consistent for this Wizards team, where he was supposed to be arguably the second or third best player on this team. But the max contract player, Bradley Beal, has not been playing up to his value, his market value. I think Kristaps has really stepped up and kept this team somewhat competitive. Of course, they've had their losing streaks over the season. He's been healthy for most of the season. He's putting up 22 points a game, and he's kind of looking like the Kristaps we've seen before, where it's that all-star potential that he's had before, and it's coming to life on this Wizards team. Do we have Julius Randle as a lock?
Julius Randle was not a lock.
I'd like, yeah, let's dive into Julius Randle, man. 25 points a game. He had a down year last season. The Knicks are back competitive, and Jalen Brunson, of course, helps this. But I don't have Jalen Brunson on my All-Star team because I think Julius Randle has been the better player on that team all season, and I don't want to give them two All-Stars because they're a middle-of-the-pack team in the East. I think Julius Randle is more deserving of the All-Star spot. Jalen Brunson has been doing this thing this year, but I think Julius Randle's resurgence after having a down year, people were kind of doubting him. I think him being in the All-Star game is something that should happen for this Knicks team. And then is Jimmy Butler a lock?
Jimmy Butler is not a lock.
So that's my third lock. Okay, so Jimmy Butler, his numbers will never wow you, and the Heat have not been as good this year as they were in previous seasons. But he's still an all-world defender, all-world leader on this team. He's averaging 22, 6, and 5, 50% from the field. And he's really the only reason, him and Tyler Hero are the only reason this team are competitive consistently. Bam, he's been doing Bam things, but we still haven't seen him take that next step that we wanted. Kyle Lowry has had a miserable season for the most part. And Jimmy has just been that force that has been consistent for them all year. And I just think he's deserving of the All-Star team based on what he does on the offensive end as a leader and, of course, on the defensive end.
All right, Brandon, who are your three?
So my three that aren't locks that I feel like should make it.
Yes.
So one, I think mine was pretty sound in terms of almost having all locks, but I guess I had Julius Randle. I just think he's been the better player on the Knicks. Jalen Brunson's been good since January 1st, but they don't pick All-Star based off January 1st. So I have him. I've also picked Bam. And what Christian just said about Bam, I would have to highly disagree with it. Bam did take that step. It doesn't look as good because of the fact that they've had injuries, and most of the time it's been just putting anybody out on the court. But he is averaging 23, 10, and 3, a steal and a block, and he's shooting 53%. So I just feel like in the last 10, he's averaging, I think, 23 and 13. So he's really the glue that keeps that team together. I know they say Jimmy Butler every single time, but if we're really being honest, he's still a 6'8", 6'9" center in this league, and he's still doing the same things. Everybody asked him to make that leap to go from 16 to whatever he needed to go to, and he went to 23, and now we're saying he still needs to make that leap. So I don't know what else he's got to do.
Before we go on, he's averaging, the 19 to 22, it's 22 a game. He averaged 19 last year, and the rebounds and the assists are pretty similar. But I wouldn't call that the jump that a lot of people have been looking for. A lot of people were looking for him to be that number one option on that team that they run the offense through. But you can go ahead. I just wanted to point out the improvement that you mentioned.
I mean, if we're saying 25-10, I guess we just assumed him to be MVP in year 4. So I didn't know
It's
that was
25 and I don't think 25-10 is MVP in this league though.
MVP conversation. It's MVP conversation.
If the team is good, maybe he is. But I'd also like to see the assists go up because I think they should be running the offense through him a lot of the time. But I mean, I don't think 24 is unrealistic for a guy with his skill set. He still has moments where he doesn't really look to score as much as he should. He's still a bit of a passive player, but the scoring has gone up by what's this 2.4 points per game. So
okay. And for my third, real quick, and I'll change my answer. I was going to say Jalen Brunson, but I'll say Kyle Kuzma. Simply because I think he's been the best Wizard as well. His defense is underrated. He's averaging 22, 8-9 rebounds. And a lot of the games, I've seen the Wizards play quite a few times, and I just feel like Kyle Kuzma is always there making an impact. So that's my third.
Okay, JG, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my 3 is I'm kind of torn between Brunson and Randall. They're gonna get a Nick in the All-Star game. I'm just not sure which one they're gonna give it to.
Yeah.
If it's recency bias has an effect, I'm gonna probably go Julius Randle. He's been playing better recently. So I'm gonna say Julius Randle. Then my other 2 is 2 point guards, Trae Young and James Harden. I know James Harden played, I guess, as much games as Tyrese, but I think 28 games is a decent amount. And if you count that, he's the league leader in assists based on per game. So just 22 and 11 assists, shooting 38% from 3. I think he's having a pretty darn good season. And then you got Trae Young. I know his field percentage is kind of nasty, to say the least, but he's averaging 27-9. Oh, 27-10 technically. He has 9.8 assists. At that point, it's based on the stats. I just think he's having a good chance at the All-Star game.
Wait, Tyrese wasn't a lock?
He's a lock. Tyrese a lock.
He's a lock.
He just wasn't a starter lock, but he was a lock.
I have a question for a sports fan.
Yo.
With the way the Hawks have just been spiraling, is Trae Young really? I mean, I know the numbers, other than the field goal percentage. I mean, the numbers are pretty normal. But is he really deserving of an All-Star spot over some players who may have been more consistent throughout the season? Because Trae Young really started off really slow. Yeah. And the field goal percentage is still bad, but it's really so bad because he started so slow. I mean, he's at 42%. Like, I don't know if that's rewarding of an All-Star caliber season. I mean, 27 and a half, 10 assists, of course. But when you're shooting 42% from the field and not playing defense, I don't know if I can put you on the All-Star team. And like he may make it based off his name and the counting stats, but like who is like the biggest snub off of your list? I know you said only one of the Knicks will get in.
Right.
And then
I got Bam on yours. I don't have Bam on mine.
I have Jimmy. I don't have Bam. I have Jimmy. But I don't know.
Trae Young is 2 losses away from putting up great numbers on a bad team. And a lot of times they just simply don't reward that. Because they're about to be in 12th. They just keep losing.
Yeah.
Well, they're on a 3-game win streak, but
I mean, okay.
That's almost them saving their. Because if they're on a 3-game win streak, that means they were lower in the standings a week ago when we did make this list. So.
And it's just overall, like, if we're saying the defense part, I think the only person that might not be a lock that we have on our list, maybe Tyrese. That's like not very good defensively because Donovan Mitchell got a lot better.
Kyrie's a lock too. So
and Kyrie got a lot better.
Tyrese not good defensively?
He's not as good as everybody else that will be on that team. Tyrese has good length. He has good length and he has good height for a point guard. But in terms of being a good defender, he's not there yet. We had this talk.
I think a lot of people were expecting Tyrese to have Lonzo type of potential defensively, just because they have similar builds.
Mhm.
Except Lonzo's a bit bigger,
I thought
but
You thought
Tyrese is. Say it again.
yeah.
No, coming into the draft, Tyrese was supposed to be a good plus defender coming into the league. And it's not that he's a bad defender currently. I mean, he's a little thin.
With offensive load.
He's
makes
lengthy, but he's a little thin. So he's a little thin, and he's not as fast as other point guards. So guarding other top point guards in the league, he may struggle at times.
The thing with defense is really just effort, in my opinion. I feel like Tyrese Halliburton has the physical abilities in terms of his length, his height, and especially the athleticism. And I just feel like he put a little more effort in. He could definitely tap into that potential.
For sure.
I think defense being just effort is a bit of a myth, because if you're 5'9", like Isaiah Thomas was, how much effort can you really put in?
Like I said,
No, but he just said he has the build necessary.
No, he does, but athleticism also comes into play when we were talking about defense. Like, you can try as much as you want, but if John Moran is just that much faster than you, can blow by you whenever he wants to,
Yeah.
what is there to do? And a lot of the point guards in the league are faster than him. But I'm not saying Tyrese is a bad defender. I'm just saying he hasn't lived up to the defensive expectations that were placed on him based on the traits that he had coming out of the draft. And that's just because he's not a plus athlete, and like he does try. So being an average defender is about trying, in my opinion. But being the plus defender that they expected him to be, you also do need a bit of athleticism, and especially at that point guard position.
Okay. So my three, my first one was my first person that wasn't a lock would be James Harden. Obviously the Sixers are a top 4 seed, and I think they'll probably find a way to get 2 All-Stars in. Because I feel like all the top 4 teams would, if the Bucks weren't missing Chris Middleton, they probably all would have 2 All-Stars. But of course, Middleton's hurt, so so I have Harden there. I took Jalen Brunson. He's been having a really good season. He's not quite at 23-6 like I predicted, but the numbers ain't that far off. So I mean, that's that. I was gonna say DeMar for my third person, but then after looking at even though I don't think this will happen, because as we said before, I think it'll only be one Nick. I think Julius Randle would get the nod over DeMar DeRozan if it comes down to those two. So those would be my 3.
Okay, it's on me.
Yeah.
All right. My 3, and correct me if I'm wrong, on the what's that word, locks, right?
Yeah.
I have Harden, Jalen Brunson, and I have Jimmy Butler, right? He's not a lot.
Jimmy is not a lot.
Y'all had good arguments, honestly. I had to rethink my own team this entire time. I like Bam more than I like Jimmy. I know you had a long conversation talking about Bam is improving this season. I saw that he's averaging the most shots of his career this year, leading the team in usage percentage after being 5th last year. His assists, of course, went down. Free throw rate and percentage were up. So it definitely took we won't say a large jump. He made a skip. We'll say that. You know what I'm saying? But I want to put him on there. I'll put him as my wild card. That's what it was. I'll make a wild card.
Yeah.
So that will bump Harden off. I'm gonna be the one to replace my forward, because let me explain again. So I had Jimmy Butler. I'm gonna take Jimmy Butler off, put Bam on, right?
So Jimmy's gonna move to the wild card now.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
But I got to keep a forward on there.
Yeah.
To replace him, I put Julius Randle on there now.
Okay.
Then must have 2 Knicks on there. Just you, Jalen. You don't even want 2 Knicks.
No.
I'm also have 2 Knicks on there. I have Jalen Brunson, and I'll have Julius Randle, and then Bam will be replacing Jimmy Butler at a wild card. So now it look like Tyrese, Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Julius Randle, Joel Embiid, Jalen Brunson, Bam Adebayo.
All right, so question to y'all. So, like Brian said, we had 2 locks starters based on the list we made earlier, which are KD and Giannis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, who are the other 3 stars you guys have? I know it's a big debate between KT and Embiid.
Yeah.
But I also know there's a debate between Tyrese and Kyrie, even though I believe
more Tyrese and Donovan Mitchell, I guess, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, who are y'all?
You go back down.
Yeah, we'll start with JB.
Start with me. All right, bet. My starters were Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, and Giannis. I think the Bucks are still first. For the first?
I think they're
keep going
second.
back. They're going back and forth with the Celtics in the first in the East.
Yeah, they're tied for second right now.
Tied for second, yeah. So that's just case by itself. And Giannis, y'all already know what we come with, so we're just keeping that at what it is. Jason Tatum, of course, having an MVP level season. Also, shooting tailed off recently. I don't know why they put him in the 3-point contest, but you know, that Larry Bird arc looking special right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, y'all see that? It is what it is. Kyrie's having, of course, mired in some controversy. He's having a great season, honestly, when he's on the floor. And he's been on the floor a lot recently, too. Donovan Mitchell, of course, had a 71. And KD's having another great season. And most likely he's going to be captain because people hate KD, but he's the most popular person in the East, honestly. That was my choice.
Okay. So for me, same thing. I basically had the same exact lineup as JB. Giannis and Kevin, obviously no need to debate there. Kyrie, like he said, underrated season, doing very underrated season, might I add, because people aren't really talking a whole lot about what Kyrie's been doing when it hasn't been off the court. And Donovan Mitchell, of course, what he's done for the Cavs this year, had to make him a starter. And then I took Jason Tatum over Embiid because I think he might get a few more votes. Now, when the media votes and the coach votes come out, it is possible that Embiid probably gets it because he'll be the highest rated center, obviously. But just for now, I thought, Tatum would be the starter because I feel like he would get enough votes to place him in the starting lineup.
My starters are Kyrie, D-Mitch, KD, Giannis, and Embiid. The closest one to me was Embiid and Tatum, but I went with Embiid just because Tatum plays for the Celtics. So that's what
I can respect that.
That's all my logic is.
I respect the consistency. Brandon?
I had let me check again. Tyrese, Kyrie, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Embiid. The reason I have Kyrie still starting with Tyrese is strictly because of Kyrie having more votes right now than Donovan. I think if it comes down to votes for those two, I think it edges it out. And before I know of the possibility of them both being starters. But I think also the NBA, the media, has been yearning for like a true point guard. And I think his numbers will look a little inflated in terms of the same way to where, say what you want, if Wiggins deserved it or not last year, right? He had very high all-star votes, but I feel like a lot of the media coverage on the fact of his all-star votes definitely rose a little bit to where they said he was 5th or 6th in the coaches vote as well. He was 5th or 6th in the media vote as well. I think kind of the opposite worked for Tyrese. So many people in the media, or whether the backup coaches pick whoever picks, they're going to be like, Tyrese has so many low votes that they're going to do the opposite and big them up to get into that spot. So I think it's a chance. It's either like 6-man or, I mean, I guess they don't have 6-man, but I think he'll be very close to starting. And that's why I have him over Donovan, only because I think Donovan's numbers may like plateau, like he may be 4-4-4.
Okay.
And if he's 4-4-4, like last year for when it was Wiggins, somebody had the same thing, but because Wiggins had 1 in the fan vote and then like 5 and 6, he was a starter.
So you do more prediction outside of who you think is
You said, what's my prediction?
So you're doing a prediction outside of, instead of who deserves it more.
I think Tyrese deserves it more than, I think my 5 right there is a good representation of my 5. I think they all deserve it equally. Not saying Donovan deserves it less. I just think he was put in a perfect situation. They gave him his point guard of the future. He has a big man that plays defense. He has 2 of them. And then he has a 3-and-D on the wing. Like, he's surrounded by defenders. He has a facilitator point guard, so he doesn't have to be Superman. He can just go out there and do what he does best. And I think it's a lot more admirable. We see teams that were supposed to trade their key pieces away to get the first pick overall, that they're still in playoff positions, and nobody thought they were going to be in the playoffs. So
they're currently the 8th seed right now. CT, do you want to?
Yeah, so I kind of did something similar to Brandon, where I almost projected with the 2 guard spots. With Donovan Mitchell, I think I would say he's probably a lock to start. and it really came down to Tyrese and Kyrie for me in the starters. But all the stuff Kyrie has been through over the past few years, or the attention he has brought upon himself or has had on himself. I don't know whether the media would give him the necessary amount of votes for him to be a starter. I think they get 25% of the vote.
Yeah.
And you know how that could go. So that I think Kyrie is having a great season, but his history, along with him missing games, it was only a few games this year. But yeah, I mean, I think Tyrese is deserving of the starting spot. I wouldn't be mad if any of the three of them started, but I think these are the three that are worthy of starting. I think Tyrese and Donovan are going to get it. When it comes to the forward spot, everybody has Giannis and KD. I don't really see an argument for Jason Tatum to start, simply because you could argue, of course, Jason Tatum's on the best team in the league. But other than that, Joel Embiid has had a much worse roster throughout the season, whether it was playing without James Harden or playing without Tyrese Maxey for long stretches of time. Joel Embiid is also averaging more in every major category than Jason Tatum. He's averaging more points, more rebounds. They're averaging the same exact amount of assists and more steals and blocks. So when he's doing that, and Embiid is second in scoring right behind Luka, I don't really see an argument for Jason Tatum to get in, especially when the Celtics are the best team in the East, but they haven't looked as dominant as they were in the early part of the season. So that whole Jason Tatum MVP thing has really been phased out. So that hype is pretty much gone. So I don't really see an argument for him to get in. He has the better team, and he's putting up worse numbers. You can argue that he's putting up worse numbers because he's on the better team, but I just think Embiid has had to do much more with less this season than the Celtics, than Jason Tatum has with the Celtics.
Even with James Harden being there?
James Harden has missed a bunch of time. And then when he came back, it was almost immediate that Tyrese Maxey got hurt. Because those are your three guys, and then Embiid has had to been without both of them for stretches throughout the season.
Well, it's a bias, you know.
This isn't 2K, though.
Yeah.
Hey,
My take on that, or do you want to move forward or keep going? Oh, yeah. So we talk about the difference between Embiid and Tatum. Okay, got you. I don't think the MVP hype is gone. I think when Brandon talked about that media, or you talked about also the media, we talk about the old media, or as Kyrie would say, the peons. They still have this thing about being the best player on the best team in the conference. I think that's what's going to keep Tatum at the top as long as the Sixers are fourth and the Celtics are first.
Is it still like that?
Yeah, it's the Celtics, the Nets, and the Bucks.
Yeah, the Celtics.
Oh, you saying the best player
player
in the best team?
What is that?
They have the best record.
I don't think that's the case anymore.
That's how
Jokic
people
just
do
won.
MVP. Yeah, MVP vote.
Oh, wait, no.
That's not true.
Or you saying
MVP?
narrative?
That's not true.
What you mean?
Best player on the best.
Jokic just won MVP last year as the sixth seed?
That's not always the case, but a lot of time, Giannis, he was the last one to do that. But mainly in All-Star, that's what I meant.
Oh, you meant
All-Star.
Typically,
My bad.
that's what I was talking about.
But even before then,
on the best team.
it's too much parity in the league to have that as your barometer. I think this year we've had like maybe in the East and West like 5 different first seeds this year.
Not in the East. It's really just been 2.
It's been 2. But
The last 2 weeks, it's been like those 3 teams because the Nets came up to second. When the Nets came to second, KD.
I thought the Nets weren't the Nets tied for first at one point.
Yeah, and then KD got injured. I'm saying, like, there's literally been so much parity. Nobody has run away with the conference. Like, it looked like it at the beginning that they ran away, but then they started games.
The Celtics are up. The Celtics are up 4.5 games, but it seems like, but the Celtics being up 4.5 games with context doesn't look as impressive.
Yeah, because you got to break it to the fact that Giannis
like every team under them has had their second or first best player miss an extended amount of time. The Bucks haven't had Chris Middleton consistently. The Nets were without Kyrie for a duration of time. Then KD just got hurt. The Sixers have been without, like I just said, Harden and Maxey. The Cavs, Darius Garland got hurt early in the season. He came back, but those are the next 4 teams, and everybody has had an injury. The Celtics have just got hit by the injury bug with Jalen Brown. Of course, Rob Williams missed the start of the season, but
And then Gallinari missing also.
They were already in. Please,
What? Respect him.
Gallinari. But I'm saying the Celtics were already the first seed without Rob Williams and Gallinari.
Okay.
And then all they did was add. It's not like Rob Williams played and then he got hurt, you know? So they were already the first seed without Rob Williams. And then Rob Williams comes back. Jalen Brown, is this the first big injury for them? And he's only going to be out, what, a week at most? 2 weeks?
Yeah, like a week, possibly.
So, they've had great injury luck this year.
Yeah.
So, in comparison to the other teams, of course, Rob Williams is big. But Rob Williams is, what, third best player on the team? I named the second or first best player on every other team. So
I think Demarco, when he was talking about making sure that they're the best player on the best team and that they'll get in, I think we use that example a lot of times. We're using best players on best teams on teams that get like 60 plus, even 70 wins in terms of like Curry when Steve Nash did it, even for the MVP, but also for that all-star consideration. I think if we're talking about a fact that a team has 33 and 27 wins, and that's the difference between one being a starter in an all-star game and not, I don't really see that as it being a very strong reasoning as to why I'll pick one person over the other.
Because that's been a reasoning for years, though, for a lot of starters in general.
Well, yes, but when it's run away, like in terms of,
is it, bro? Like, it's the best player on the best team, regardless of how.
Always in conversation.
Usually.
No, but
he is in the conversation though. That's the whole argument.
I'm saying he's in the conversation, but I'm saying his lead doesn't take as much. Like we were witnessing Curry averaged 23 and 7 and won MVP, and he was starting, but it was the fact that they had 45 wins at the All-Star break. They have 45, almost 50 wins.
Okay.
Because it's like his numbers, Tatum's numbers are comparable to everyone else's, and he has a few more wins. If his numbers were about the same, or like you said, even worse for Embiid, and he has 15 more wins at this part of the season, then I understand exactly what you're saying. But I don't think that difference is big enough to say, okay, let's pick somebody who's worse in every statistical category because their team's a little bit better.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I get that.
I mean, we're not going to agree on a consensus. This isn't the what's the play consensus rankings. This is just all our takes. So you would just mention Stephen Curry. We want to move on to the West.
So we'll move on to the Western Conference. So we had 4 starter locks this time. We have Stephen Curry, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic. And then the rest of the locks from there were Zion Williamson, Ja Morant, SGA, AD, Lauri Markkanen, and Devin Booker.
How many spots did that leave?
So that leaves
2
spots, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because 1, 2.
Yeah, 9 and 10, yes.
Yeah, so we have 10 locks. We have 10 locks in the Western Conference, so that leaves 2 spots. So, Brandon, who are your remaining two players?
My list looks a little wonky because of the injury fact. It's very hard in the West to pick the final people. So
yeah,
I have Zion, AD, and who else did I have on here?
Lord.
No. I'm talking about at the bottom of my rankings.
Devin Booker.
Zion. He has Zion, AD, and Devin
Anthony
Booker.
Davis, Zion Williamson, and Devin Booker. I had Devin Booker there as well because that injury's been lingering. Like it hasn't been like he's out for 6-7 games here. No, he keeps going out, and I think that'll have a big effect in terms of the team. And every time we pick the West team for probably like the last 4 or 5 years, the team has, for the West at least, has never been that team because everybody's always injured. So that's why I have my team that way. I have Anthony Edwards in there. And the reason I do is just because we obviously see that team as a train wreck, but he's holding it together. If you look at his stats without Cat, without Gobert, and then the combination of both, I think he goes up to like maybe 9 or 10 rebounds without Gobert in the game. So it's like he's doing what he can to win. Again, that team is a dumpster fire. So I applaud that. And then also, I think I had was Sabonis a lock or Sabonis wasn't a lock?
He was not a lock.
That's crazy. Dang.
Yeah, I didn't Sabonis, and then I'll even throw in De'Aaron Fox. I feel like at least one of those 2 players has to get in. They say they have like one of the best offenses of all time, even though like almost all offenses now are some of the best of all time. But we expected losses and we expected things from the Sacramento Kings that are not happening. They're a winning franchise right now, as it seems, as it looks. They're keeping things afloat, and I think it's primarily because of the 18, 10, and 5 from him, and then De'Aaron Fox with the 26 and 6. So I think DeMontis gets in over AD.
For sure. For sure.
Okay.
I
As
think
a
he does-
replacement or just period?
I mean, I guess we can say replacement because it'll just be like they'll probably vote him in with the consensus that he's being replaced. Like that's been done before. Where like,
Just to
okay,
give
we
everybody
recognize
the All-Star
he's
nods.
having a good season, but he just hasn't been there, and then he'll just get the votes.
Okay. CT, who are your two spots?
So, after hearing all the names that were mentioned, it appears that my two that weren't locks were Domantas Sabonis, and Brandon just alluded to why he should be on the list, and Paul George. In making this list, I realized that I am missing a pretty big name. Damian Lillard isn't on my list, but when you look at it, he'll probably get in because I don't know if Devin Booker is going to play, and I have Devin Booker on the list. So that's either an omission or me just giving the acknowledgement to Devin Booker, because like Brandon said, they often just vote players in who they know won't play. So Dame will be in the All-Star game either way, whether he's on my list or not. But with Paul George and Domantas Sabonis, that whole Pacers Kings trade last year was greatly talked about. And I was one of the people who felt like the Kings got fleeced. And even if they did get fleeced, because I do think that long term, and I mean, just for their future, I felt like Tyrese was the person they should have built around. But for the Kings, we have to understand that this is a team that hasn't been to the playoffs in almost or over 2 decades. And their goal right now is to simply make the playoffs and sell home playoff tickets. So Sabonis, pairing him with De'Aaron Fox was what they could have done to make that happen. And it wasn't as seamless last year as it was this year. So coming into the season, we didn't really expect much from the Kings. But ever since, that like that beam thing has started, they've been pretty decent throughout the season. I think they're a borderline playoff team that people can actually believe in. They're currently the 4th seed. So they'd have home court advantage in that first round, and nobody saw that coming from them, especially with how stacked we thought the West was coming into the season. And so that takes me to my next player. Paul George, he's on here because I knew that he wasn't going to get the acknowledgement from everybody on the panel. So I just felt like everybody's going to have Dame. So, Paul George is somebody who deserves acknowledgement for what he's had to deal with on this Clippers team. Not even just this season, but for the past few seasons. And they're currently the 6th seed, so they're out of the play-in race. And he's been the only consistent player on that team. And he just recently got injured, and he's still averaging his normal averages 23, 6, and 5. Just really doing it all especially when Kawhi isn't playing. He doesn't really have consistent help from anybody on that team. They're still the 6th seed in the West. Mind you, the 6th seed in the West is only 23 and 22, but still, when you look at what he has done with the pieces around him and how that team has just been up and down, but they've been able to maintain that playoff level, is just impressive to me.
Is there something you want to say, JG, or?
It's just like you talk about Paul George like you about to retire or something. Like it's a retirement pick, like they D Wade and Dirk. If I'm like,
No. This is nowhere near a retirement pick, man. Realistically, how do you have Anthony Davis in over Paul George?
was that a rhetorical question or was that a serious question?
No, that was a serious question. When was the last time Anthony Davis played?
Davis over Paul George?
We're not asking who the better player is.
I don't understand your question then.
AD has been a monster this season. I have Anthony Davis on my list.
Right.
But my thing is, I'm just looking at the players you don't have. That you do have over Paul George. Right. I don't know if Anthony Davis is worthy of an All-Star nod over Paul George, considering where the Lakers are in the standings and the fact that Anthony Davis hasn't played.
Where they are in the standings, he hasn't played in a month.
Where were they before he left, though? It's not like they were good before he left.
That's true.
This is about where they were.
I'm not gonna talk about the Westbrook thing. This ain't the place for that. But there's reasons why the record is what it is. It ain't because of Anthony Davis.
No, I understand that, but he hasn't played. He hasn't played this calendar year. So I don't know if I can reward that with an All-Star nod, considering the standings where the team is. You give Devin Booker an All-Star nod simply because of how bad the Suns have fallen off since he's been hurt.
Mhm.
The Lakers, on and off. I mean, and when he was there, it's not like they were world beaters. You know, they go on their win streaks, but they go on their losing streaks too, whether he's playing or not. You know, and it seemed like they were figuring things out right before he got hurt. But with the Lakers, you never know if that's a real win streak or if they're just on their streak because they have two of the best players in the world. You know,
I'm not even
But-
sure combined how many games they've played together. They've taken turns being hurt, and we have used different lineups almost every game, and mainly lineups that require a lot of Pat Bev and Russell Westbrook. So, of course, we lose games, but just based on individual performance from Anthony Davis, I'm gonna put him over Paul George every time. I really
so
don't
we're giving
gotta say
the
one
Lakers two
team.
All-Stars at the 13 seed.
Say that one more time.
And I don't have an issue with him making it. I have an issue with them having him being an All-Star over somebody who is firmly in the playoffs and has been consistent
We're
for the
going for
team.
teams or we're going for players?
If we're doing the same thing, it's the All-Star team. And how much of an All-Star are you if your team is the 12th, 11th seed and you have two All-Stars? Or do you really have two All-Stars if you're the 12th, 11th seed?
No, they have not had two All-Stars for most of the season.
Exactly. So how can you reward that? If he hasn't played, if two of the All-Stars haven't been consistent in playing, LeBron's played 33 games. That's 8 more than Anthony Davis has played. Anthony Davis hasn't played, I don't know the last time he played.
I see what you're saying though. I see what you're saying.
I see. I just don't get it.
But, like,
is
they're
gonna
the-
get his
they're the
formality
13
vote.
Would this be unprecedented for the 13th seed to have two All-Stars? Has this ever
Probably.
happened?
I don't think it's
Like,
ever
come
happened.
on.
I think the Celtics were like the lowest seed to have two All-Stars when we had Jalen and Jason, and they were struggling.
And Anthony Davis is an All-Star player, but he has not played. So I almost want to make an edit to my list, but I don't want to take him out because he's been so good, you know?
Yeah.
But if I was to redo it, I would probably put Dame in over Anthony Davis because Dame has been there consistent all season. I don't think Anthony Davis is worthy of the spot specifically over Paul George. It's basically what I'm saying. Like, if that's what your list comes down to, I don't think that criteria makes sense.
Okay.
All right, well, JG, do you want to give your two now?
Yeah, Damon Lillard and Devin Booker.
Well, Devin was a lot.
Devin's a lot, bro. Ooh.
Damn.
Then Sabonis. I just think he makes it. It's one of them. Kings players probably gonna make it. I'm probably gonna go Sabonis because he's a more popular player. Also due to the trade and just the reaction after that, and he's kind of played up to what they thought they were getting when they traded him. They didn't look so well last season, but this season looked like they will probably at least make the play-in, if not the playoffs. So, I think he's gonna make it. And then Dame, I guess you forgot about Dame. He's averaging almost 29 and 30, playing more games than Paul George. So, not sure how you leave them all.
I changed my list. It's okay.
That's good.
Yeah. So you good? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start just by saying I was like the lone person not to pick Sabonis at the beginning, so that is why he is not a lock right now. But it's kind of the same thing as the Knicks with Brunson and Randall. One of them is going to get in. I wouldn't be surprised if Sabonis got in, but I was thinking at the time, like, you probably, like, I was talking with my coworker. We were talking about the fact that De'Aaron Fox probably gets this nod. Maybe it's a narrative thing that I'm thinking about where it's like, he's never been snubbed, but it's just one of those things where it's like, here you go, kind of like give him one of those.
Mike Conley.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that, though.
It's not like Mike. Mike Conley had to be like what, 4th or 5th selection?
And Mike Conley was like a multi-injury replacement, and Michael Conley was 30-something. That was almost a lifetime achievement award they gave him.
I'm trying to figure it out.
And De'Aaron Fox. Now, if you ask me who I'd rather see, either him or Sabonis, I'd probably rather watch De'Aaron Fox in an All-Star game. But
I don't know.
that Michael Conley comparison was a little crazy, if you ask me.
No.
Yeah.
I would say it would be one of those early Devin Booker comparisons where he was still putting up the numbers, but
Yeah.
the 2nd or 3rd injury pick.
Okay. Yeah. And then my second guy, like CT, Had Paul George. He kind of laid it out there pretty well. So I'm not gonna say too much about that. That was my second guy.
So me, yeah, CT, Christian and I had the same exact teams. My two players were Demarco Sabonis and Paul George. I think Demarco Sabonis is a lock. He's putting up numbers comparable to Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, and one other player right now. So when you up there, those players in terms of just hitting numbers across the board, yeah, you're all-star for sure. Secondly, with Paul George, yeah, I've had to change it. While you guys were talking, I was doing a little more research. I saw that him, Devin Booker, and Damian Lillard all played within 29 to 31 games. Now, if you just look at record by itself, the Clippers obviously are the 6th seed, they're the highest one. So if you want to base it off that, that's your preference, and yeah, Paul George is what I go with. But then I saw that he's averaging 24 points a night about. Devin Booker's averaging 27, Damian's averaging 28. I see Devin Booker was a lock. I regret putting him as a lock. The numbers are there. I think they. I don't know if they just corny. I don't know what it is. I just don't like voting for Devin Booker.
No, they're definitely corny.
But he's putting the 27 is there. You know what I'm saying? But in the seeing that ranking at the 13th, not 13th, sorry, the 11th seed, that kind of makes it like, I don't know. Same thing with the Anthony Davis thing.
But you also have to consider that they are the 11th seed because he's not playing.
Right.
Which is also an argument that you can make for him not being an all-star team.
Exactly.
Because he hasn't, like Paul George hasn't missed this long stretch of games. He misses games here and there, of course, because, he's just aging a little bit.
But like
Devin Booker hasn't played since he tried to play on the Christmas game, and that didn't go well. So he hasn't played since then.
But they're still playing around the same amount of games because him, Dame, Paul George, Dame, and
yes, the Clippers. You know how the Clippers are with that load management thing, and Paul George just recently also picked up an injury. But I think you also have to consider what Paul George is dealing with. He's going from the first to second option every other night because Kawhi can't choose when to play, and you almost have to change your play style because if Kawhi isn't playing, a lot of times he is the main play initiator, or if Kawhi is playing, a lot of times he's simply playing off the ball, waiting for Kawhi to do whatever he does. And if Kawhi is playing off the bench, who knows what he's going to do that day.
Right.
So it's so inconsistent with that team and the fact that they're still the 6th seed and he's still doing his thing. That's really why I gave him that nod, man.
So you think the 6th seed is more give more credit to Paul George rather than the depth in their team to be able to handle all this?
Well, I think Tyronn Lue is a great coach, right. But you also have to consider who else on that team has been there consistently. I mean, they are a deep team. We talked about that before the season. But early on in the season, we were questioning the depth because people were struggling and they were looking crazy when it was time to actually play games. Now, things have straightened out a little bit, but if they were to go to the trade deadline and they come out the trade deadline not making any moves, we would be surprised because this is a team where they haven't played up to the expectations we placed on them. And even if Kawhi isn't playing, I think this team is better than 23 and 22. But I do think him playing so sporadically may have an effect on them being 23 and 22 because you don't know what you're going to get when he does play. You don't have the opportunity to build continuity, whether he plays on Monday and then he doesn't play Wednesday, but then he plays on Thursday. So it's like you're not even able to build chemistry because that main player isn't there consistently. So you're not able to figure out what your team really looks like. So being 23 and 22, Tyronn Lue is a great coach. I think he's figured out some things for them to do. But not having Kawhi has just really messed them up as a team. And I think Paul George still being able to be consistent in his role is impressive to me.
Well, I think those days are coming to an end real quick because Kawhi has averaged 30 and played all of his last 5 games. So,
have any of them been back-to-backs? Because if that comes, he's not playing.
But like 70 to 80% of the players aren't playing back-to-backs at this point now. It's an unwritten rule.
Players
and
over
that's why the
30,
NBA stopped scheduling them. They haven't had a back-to-back since the first week. So if he plays 9 out of 10 and he averages 30, then
that's chemistry.
Hey, they're building it.
To replace Paul George with me, I'm choosing Damian Lillard. I've been convinced. Thank you.
Wow.
We talk about just their whole spiel about the Clippers, right? They had these high expectations. We knew coming to the season Kawhi Leonard was going to was going to not play.
Yeah,
Like,
low.
we not surprise anyone. So even still, we still have expectations for them, and they're not reaching it. We thought the Blazers were going to be terrible, which they are. They started off on a good little hot streak. They moved down to, I think, they're maybe in the play-in right now. But take that with the expectation we had for Dame, where he was coming off an injury-plagued season. Anthony Simons comes in, CJ McCollum's gone. You don't really know what's going to happen with this roster, and he still has them within the play-in, possibly the playoffs. Because I think with the Clippers are 23-22 and the Blazers are 21-23. They right there with them.
21-22.
My bad, 21-22. Right there with them.
I think the thing with Kawhi though, yes, we knew he was going to load manage,
Yeah.
but those first 2 weeks of the season where he was either coming off the bench or simply not playing, and then Tyronn Lue did not know when he was going to play, and the public had no idea what was going on. We did not expect that to happen.
Okay.
Like you said, we knew he wasn't going to play. Yeah, Kawhi's been low managing since he left San Antonio.
Right.
We did not know he was going to go weeks without playing, or we knew he wasn't playing back to backs, but weeks without playing. When he did play, he would come off the bench randomly. He would only be scoring 6 points some games, 12 points others. He would hit a game winner and then not play for another 3 games. We did not know that was happening with the Clippers. Now, maybe the Clippers knew, but the public did not know that Kawhi, we thought he had that full year off, so he would be coming back and playing his normal maybe 55 to 60 games.
Who thought that?
I think most people didn't think that. We know
Who thought that?
we see KD, we think
Could you say who thought that?
Yeah, we didn't think that.
Who thought he was going to play 55? I thought he could have played 55 games.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. You thought that. Nah, man.
So you thought he was going to come into the season playing 15, 20 minutes a game off the bench?
Yeah.
No. I think it's unfair to say
He's lying.
Been saying his leg been falling off the bone for years now.
Jalen is lying.
He's the injury concern. I'm not saying
I've been saying
you cannot say I'm lying about that.
But I think it'd be crazy to think you can expect anything from the Clippers. So to say that we had expectation that he would be there, no. We all know that we don't know what's gonna happen.
But Demarco, real quick, I don't know if I can take this supporting cast claim by the Blazers. I can't sit here and watch my man Jeremy Grant put these stats.
Anthony Simons.
He's nice, but we didn't know he was gonna be nice in his role.
No,
What
please.
Does that mean?
You don't know ball, and that's okay. Because I was saying this when they got him. When Jeremy Grant was putting up 23, they said, "Oh, he's putting up good numbers on a bad team." I was like, okay.
He had to prove us wrong.
Nurkic is putting up 15 and 10. They have a full when Lillard plays. They have a full lineup.
I agree,
They are perfect to go.
but we did not expect that initially. Well, when I say we, I mean the majority. Y'all may have expected that. The majority.
No. What
Go ahead.
I'm saying this all to say, with Paul George out, with all their inequities, things going on, if we take those 3 comparison players, when it's like Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, even De'Aaron Fox, and we do Paul George, those are like the fringe players. I guess at this point, I know we had Devin Booker as a lock.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of showing that Booker is kind of far and away, because when Damian Lillard was in and out of the lineup, that team was still holding firm. And now since Damian Lillard has been back, they're now showing his individual stats, but they're showing the losses that are accompanied with them.
Okay.
So I'm looking and I'm like, if we're choosing between the two, just because Damian Lillard has the fancier stats, I'm not picking him over Paul George, but I'm not picking either. They might get picked in terms of like just the notoriety and the names, but they should not be in them. If we're talking strictly All-Star game and how your season's been, neither of them should be in it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
All
right. Well, like to thank Brandon and CT for joining us virtually today. This has been another episode of the What's the Play podcast. Stay tuned for more All-Star discussion down the line, and tune in for the next play.